Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Travel Show with John Guinn on ukhealthradio.com. If you can hear any noises in the background, that's just Max, my dog. I've had the aircon going in my studio all morning trying to keep the place cool, and I'm trying to make sure he doesn't overheat. As a black lab, he's not liking this warm weather we're having at the moment. And I might start sounding desperate later in the show because it's going to start getting warm in here again because the aircon's going to, obviously the aircon's off, so the heat's going to come back up again. And I've got the window open, so you might be able to hear some traffic noise as well. So that's all the housekeeping out of the way. My guests this week are Frank Brehany from Holiday Travel Watch. He'll be telling us more about the travel consumer world. He hasn't been on since the beginning of the year, so we catch up with what's changed, what's new, and what's stayed the same. And also we have Travel Supermarket. I have two people from there. Travel Supermarket's done another survey, and they've hired James Ellis, a travel writer, to come in to explain the figures and talk about package holidays, which is what was investigated. And also Emma Coulhurst will be telling us about Travel Supermarket. Brexit is a year old tomorrow, but we still are in the EU. And the first thing I talked to Frank about is a survey that the EU has done into price comparison websites. We're still in the EU, so there's still investigations and we still benefit from what they find. And one that came up since we last spoke was about price comparison sites. And they found that 2/3 contravene consumer protection rules. It wasn't just travel, this was the whole comparison industry as it was. What did the EU find? What were these companies doing wrong?
I think it's one of the age-old stories. It's about how they present a particular product. It's about whether it's a headline product or whether it is the actual value of the product. I think the best way to explain that is that recently I changed my own telephone and broadband provider. And I went on to these several comparison websites. And it was interesting to actually see the figure that was being presented to me as the consumer in the comparison site by comparison to the actual price when you click through. Because there were various extras that were thrown on. Some people would say it's hidden charges. It is about a lack of clarity. It's about a lack of transparency. And, consumers can be forgiven for perhaps clicking through. I almost did it myself, where I almost clicked and entered into a contract. And I just decided to make a final check. And the price that I thought I was going to pay was actually very different to the price that was produced in a summary that wasn't easily accessible. So that, I think, is probably the principal concern with comparison sites, is to actually, I think there was a similar point, John, a few years ago about the way the airlines presented their prices. It was more of a headline price rather than the actual price that the consumer would pay. And I think these are the points. These are the serious points that have been made in relation to comparison sites. And some will say, some of these sites will say, well, actually, we're delivering a great deal more clarity and more information and the ability to compare the deals between the products. But I'm pretty sure if and I don't describe myself as an ordinary consumer, but I, as a non-ordinary consumer, can easily get caught out. Imagine how many ordinary consumers who are not seeing the kind of things I see get caught out and find themselves buying a product that they didn't particularly want to pay that much money for, or indeed the type of product, or indeed lock themselves into a contract that they didn't want to get locked into.
So be very careful before you click on anything.
Yeah, I think it's always the case. I mean, I would say the same thing for travel. When I was doing my TV broadband, telephone broadband, I had several comparison sites. I saw their deals with the different providers. Then I went into those providers' websites and I compared their so-called online deals to see which was the best deal. And then the more important thing is to check at the very least, if you do nothing else, check the summary of the terms and conditions, so that you understand the length of the contract, the type of product, and indeed the cost. And if you follow those basic rules, it doesn't matter whether it's broadband, holidays, whatever it is. You follow those basic rules, you will protect yourself as a consumer.
You mean somebody should actually sit down and read the terms and conditions before they click the button? That never happens.
You should do, and I will plead guilty to the charge that I haven't in the past, but I'm particularly resolute. There are sites that do actually summarise now their own terms and conditions. Certainly read those at the very least, the short summary, if you do nothing else. But you really should be reading the terms and conditions, because it can cost you an awful lot of money at the end of the day if something goes wrong. And you tick that little box that says, I agree to all of the above. Be a savvy consumer. Take the time, invest the time, and make sure, yes, I know it's legalese, and it's been written by a lawyer somewhere in some dusty old office. But take the time and think about what they're saying to you. And if you don't like it, don't click on it.
Yeah, the amount of times when I was a travel agent, somebody came up to me, I need your help. I booked a holiday and I don't like what they're doing. Did you read the terms? No. Well, you're stuffed. And I can't help anyway because you didn't book it with me. But there we go. Yeah,
exactly. It's very difficult for a third party to be able to mediate in that kind of difficulty. Because, if you tick the box, there are arguments that you can make around this, but at the end of the day, if you've ticked the box, you've ticked the box, and it is a case, as I said earlier, consumer beware.
You're listening to The Travel Show with John Guinn on ukhealthradio.com. We'll be hearing more from Frank shortly, but now travel supermarkets. As we were talking about price comparison websites, the first question I put to Emma Coolhurst from Travel Supermarket was based on what Frank has said about price comparison websites, and this is what she had to say. Emma, my other guest on this week's show discussed the recent EU investigation into price comparison websites. It did find that 2/3 of them were misleading consumers with the prices not matching what they actually paid in the end. How does Travel Supermarket display its prices?
Well, we work really hard with our partners to ensure pricing's as accurate as possible. Clearly it's really important, but prices are incredibly low, across the industry at the moment, so there are bargains to be found. Using a price comparison site is a great way to get that good deal on your holiday, and also to compare travel-related products, like car hire and airport parking. But, we welcome any review like this because it's important to keep industries accountable. And it's a way of reassuring customers as well that using our site, enables you to get a good deal. I don't know what I'd have personally done before price comparison sites. It's just a great way, with the internet being as huge. Well, it's beyond huge, isn't it? It's a way of being able to see across the market where the best prices are for you.
Yes, my other guest did say he used it for his own broadband comparison, so everybody uses them. But
yeah, you can compare all sorts of things to help you save money on your household budget these days. Yeah.
In a way, you're kind of like what I was when I was a travel agent. My reputation is dependent on how other people act towards my clients. So do you constantly review the companies you link to on your website, and if they're upsetting the people who visit you, do you take action to drop them? Do you give them a letter asking them to change their ways?
All our partners, we make sure they have, the right protection. So Abta, Atoll protection, because it's very important that when you're booking that package, that you have that right protection. So clearly we make sure that those companies are protected, have that protection for their customers. That's absolutely essential.
You were on the show a few weeks ago and you talked about hot destinations to go with cheap prices. Can you just remind us where we should be looking for this year, please?
Absolutely. If you're looking for value and destination isn't as important to you, then where you choose to go can save you lots and lots of money. So, for example, next weekend, you can go from Stansted, the weekend after next, 25th of June, to Crete for £128 per person, self-catering, for a week, 4-star hotel, or 4-star apartments. I mean, those sort of prices are comparable, really, with 1995. And the reason why there are such amazing bargains at the moment is because it's been a perfect storm in the travel industry, John. There has been literally Brexit, the fall in the value of the pound means, saving money on your holiday is even more important. I don't need to tell people, really. The US election affected the exchange rate, then the election recently has meant people have delayed booking their trip. And as a result of that, prices are tumbling for last-minute deals. So if you haven't booked your holiday yet, there are amazing bargains to be found. And I would say comparing Greece and Spain on the same days, you can save as much as 67% by choosing Greece over Spain. There's some incredible bargains there. I'd also say to look to Turkey. And, there's some amazing prices in Turkey as well. And also consider all-inclusive. I know you said destination, but when you're going to those destinations, there are bargains for as little as £250 for a whole week, well-reviewed hotels across particularly Greece. And you can think about Zante. The brilliant bit about Greece is there's so many places to explore, aren't there? Zante, Kefalonia, Crete, Corfu, you name it, you can find an amazing bargain at the moment. So think about the low cost of living when you get there. And if you follow all those pieces of advice, you'll find an amazing break at the moment. It doesn't have to be Spain. If you want to go to Spain, you can still get some good prices, but you can save money by thinking of Greece and Turkey particularly.
Your website's more than just finding cheap prices. What else do you share on there?
Well, we also compare other products. So once you book that holiday, it's always worth planning those travel holiday extras as soon as you can. So that's things like your travel insurance. You need to be covered from the day you book that holiday in case anything goes wrong. Fingers crossed nothing will, but you need that cover. And we actually don't say go for the cheapest. We say go for the right cover. So we recommend that your policy has $2 million cover for medical expenses, for example, that you have baggage cover of a minimum of £1,500. To get the right travel insurance